but everyone who's gone into the park so far has indicated that police are threatening to arrest people and driving people out. And so there's several people who that's happened to. And I want to really test and find out what's happening by asking the police politely what exactly is going on today. And I also would like to ask them about whether they've seen the assault carried out by 3 police officers against Nicholas Scholes last week, who's been speaking at Speaker's Corner for as long as I have, 35 years or so, and who was brutally arrested last week without any charge, without any engagement, without anything. It was clearly a criminal assault by people dressed in uniform. And I will be lodging a complaint to the independent police commissioners, and I'm quite happy to back Nicholas up in court. We've got plenty of evidence. I think the police must pay him massive compensation for that assault. In any case, I'm going to go over the Speaker's Corner in a short while. I'll just tell people here what's going on. It seems to be the case that the police seem to think it's fine for us to stand over here, but for some reason we're not allowed in Hyde Park, the Speaker's Corner, which is the most weird thing. So and over here we seem to use megaphones and all that. I really don't understand the logic behind all this, and I think that's what we need to clarify. You know, is it something logical, or is it something being aimed at destroying our rights, specifically our right to gather in Hyde Park and Speaker's Corner?
I want to say a few words about what's happening here today. I want to say a few words about what's happening today, why some of us are here. At Speaker's Corner, we've had the right to speak at Speaker's Corner since 1872. And over a number of months, the police have used coronavirus laws as an excuse to try and shut down free speech. And that's what it means, because we're not talking about one person's view or another. We have Christians, we have Muslim, we have Shia, we have Sunni, we have Mennonites, we have Catholics, we have born-again Christians, Pentecostals, Marxists, anarchists, pro-Israel, anti-Israel, Palestinian, anti-Palestinian, and so on. So we are the voice of the people with different views and different opinions. And Great Britain, when their governments go around the world and their embassies represent themselves around the world, they say, Speaker's Corner proves we're a democracy. But in the last few months, the government, or better said, some people in the police, have taken it upon themselves to try to close down Speaker's Corner and the right to free speech, at a time when no public discussion is able to take place without people being arrested and detained without charge, like a Chilean or South African dictatorship. Last week, for example, Nicholas Scholes was arrested in Hyde Park. When he was arrested in Hyde Park, it was a direct criminal assault by 3 people dressed as police officers, violently assaulting a regular speaker at Speaker's Corner. And we will take them to court. We will get them tried for battery, assault, and criminal arrest. So if they think they're going to get away with this, they've got another thing coming. We got loads of video footage of what they did last week. They were chasing me and then grabbed the first person they could possibly grab, handcuffed him, although he's mentally ill, and pushed him against a fence for about 10 minutes, then dragged him by his arms, and you could see the distress and pain on his face when he was shoved into the van. These are criminal, violent actions by a police force that is totally and absolutely out of control. And for that reason, I will be going over now to the police once again and requesting to know exactly what they are up to at Speaker's Corner, and whether they have taken away the right to speak at Speaker's Corner, and under what legislative framework they have done so. Last week I said I'm happy for people to gather 2 meters apart. That was the police officer's complaint. When people tried to gather 2 meters apart, the police officer tried to arrest me. He was clearly hyped up. I don't know what his mental problem is. but he has some sort of mental problem and he felt that he had to arrest somebody. That is not how a democracy works. That is not how policing works in a so-called liberal democracy. Policing must be based on some form of legislative framework and on some form of consent. Simply arresting people is the hallmark of a police dictatorship. And that is where we have ended up now, under the new coronavirus legislation, under a de facto police dictatorship, where we have no right to protest, no right to complain, no right to disagree, and where any arbitrary imposition of power can be made by any police officer in the land, without regard for any legal framework. That is why I am opposed to the corona dictatorship they're imposing. It has nothing to do with health. There is no evidence from anywhere in the world, from Black Lives Matter protests, from street protests in Bolivia, from street protests in Lebanon, from the general strike in India 2 weeks ago, with 250 million people marching on the streets, or from the anti-lockdown protests all around the world. There is no evidence of the transmission of one single case of coronavirus in the open air on those demonstrations. Given that the government knows this, that's why they say you can go out in the open air. Given that they know you cannot catch it easily in the open air, and it's never been caught on demonstrations, why are they afraid to allow us to demonstrate? In case we find out who's stolen the money, who stole the money that's been given out in the name of coronavirus, which tech companies, which pharmaceutical companies, which testing companies, which police surveillance companies, which of them have made money out of coronavirus? And how many of them are directly tied to the government, to the links between the government, SAGE, the so-called scientific committee, and also between National Health Service providers, privateers, who've been plundering the NHS and destroying the NHS in front of our eyes in the name of fighting coronavirus. Every single day we are told more and more lies. The latest lie is that there is some mutant strain going around, and that's more deadly and more serious than anything else in the world. It is a lie. More people die. 2 million children a year nearly die of pneumonia, under 5 years of age. Tuberculosis, 1.5 million. Malaria, 495,000. AIDS, an extra million deaths are expected this year from AIDS because of the lack of treatment, because of the way in which the health services around the world have been decimated, destroyed and closed in the name of fighting coronavirus. This is not about coronavirus. This is about the imposition of dictatorial powers by insane technology companies and pharma companies who have seized control over the politics of the world and are pushing us towards a dystopia where we've already spent nearly a year alienated from each other, unable to hug, kiss, show friendship and love to our family and others. This is a world of insanity. There was no grounds to close down Christmas. There was no grounds to close down New Year. There was no grounds to close down even the Notting Hill Carnival. As I said, no evidence for catching the virus in the open air on demonstrations, protests or events. No evidence. We are supposed to have a policy driven by evidence, but we do not. We have policy driven by lies and by liars. And that's why I'm going to go over and confront the police now.